Vincent here, doing another review for the AGSEduGamer channel, and today I want to take a look at a game called Memoir 44. Now I'm happy to say I survived the first week of school. It was pretty frantic, but also very fun. So I thought I'd take some time this weekend to look at a really good light strategy war game that you could use to supplement a World War II unit. This game was designed by Richard Borg and published by Days of Wonder. So let's open this game up and see how it might be useful to you in your class. So unlike a lot of other war games or strategy games, Memoir 44 is different in that the mechanics are very simple and streamlined. The game is easy to learn, it has smooth mechanics, and can be played in 30 to 60 minutes. This is very nice because unlike other war games, which are much more detail-oriented, can take many hours to play, students who even aren't necessarily big into strategy games or war games may find that they have a very good time with Memoir 44. So let's take a deeper look at the board. So here's the board set up for Memoir 44, and like other war games, like Axis and Allies, Memoir 44 takes a very close look at many different battles from World War II. The game is very versatile in that the board is actually double-sided. Now at the moment we're looking at one side of the board which deals with amphibious landings, and at the moment I have the battle set up for Sword Beach on D-Day on June 6, 1944. So this is the beach landing. You have the Allied forces, you can see here in the foreground, making a landing on the beach, and they're going to try and take over the Axis beachheads and capture the villages in the back there. So Memoir 44 is very neat in that the book comes with 16 different scenarios that you can play through. Now you have a range of battles, some which are like this one, which focuses on an amphibious assault on a beach. You have Sword Beach, you have Omaha Beach, but if you flip the board over, you'll notice that it focuses more on land battles. So for example, you could recreate the liberation of Paris, and so the game is very interesting in that way. The game is also set up so that you can buy multiple boxes and have massive battles involving multiple boards. They have what's called Operation Overlord mode, where you can put two boards together and have massive battles back and forth. Now this game is meant for 2 players, however it can be expanded to play in teams. So normally if you were playing a game with 2, one side would start as the Allies and they'd play back and forth, and then whoever wins after that game, they switch sides. So if the Allies have a strategic advantage in one scenario, you then play the Axis in the second game. And the way you win is that you take your forces, you use cards and use dice to try and defeat your opponent, and you're trying to capture strategic objectives or defeat your enemies and collect medals. So you play your first game as the Allies, you would then play your second game as the Axis, and whichever player has accumulated the most medals at the end of the game is the winner. It's nice that this game is actually so short that it's almost encouraged to play 2 games back to back, each player having a turn to play as the Allies and the Axis. So just taking a quick look at the components for Memoir 44, you'll notice they are of high quality and very well designed. The major units are infantry, tank units, artillery, barbed wire, and hedgehogs for beach defense. And very cleverly, they used trays for the cards. This way, it really helps streamline team play. So as opposed to having one person holding onto the cards, the whole team, if you're playing 3-on-3, they can stand back, look at their cards, and analyze and figure out a strategy as a team. There are also tiles that are double-sided to create lots of versatility between the different scenarios. And there's little cardboard punch-outs for medals that you would acquire in the game, or symbols identifying special forces units. And of course, there's special dice, not your traditional 6-sided numbers, but special symbols you use to score hits against different types of units. Another design feature I like of this game is that they provide reference cards that you set up beside the board, just to give you quick reference for perhaps how certain terrain influences different units, to show you how perhaps the beach, the sand, or the ocean will affect different units, and just quick shortcuts for the statistics of the different units that you're using in any given scenario. So overall, this game is very well designed. As I mentioned, it's very streamlined. This game is not going to be intimidating for someone who hasn't played many board games or perhaps hasn't had much experience with strategy war games. So it's going to be really easy for anyone who's just interested in the subject matter to jump in and start playing. And they're quickly going to learn the ropes and will probably become an expert sooner rather than later. So just by looking at the board, you might assume that this is just a strategic war game without a whole lot of historical content included. However, when you look at the rule book, you discover this is where Richard Borg has included a lot of the historical background. So for each scenario is a dedicated page in the rule book It has the title, the name of the battle, it has the date, and it has, most importantly, a solid paragraph looking at the historical background of each battle. So what this does is provides the historical context for each battle that you're going to play, and it gives you details on important dates, locations, and important personalities who played a role in those battles. So this is very important in that your students who are particularly interested in military history and would like to go into more depth as opposed to just looking at an overview of World War II will get an opportunity to A, learn a lot of finer details about specific battles from World War II, and this is going to add a lot of fun to the game as well, and that the students are going to have a good idea of the historical context of the battle that they're playing. The game also includes the conditions for victory and special rules for each scenario. So even though the core game mechanics are the same from each scenario, the way you play them will be different depending on which one it is you're playing, in that maybe you have special forces, maybe there's special victory conditions, or maybe there's rules that limit one side, either the Axis or the Allies. Now the good news is if your students really get into Memoir 44, they blow through all 16 campaigns in a matter of weeks, well, there are literally hundreds of other battles that you can buy to expand this game. Now, the rulebook limits the battles in the game to the European theater and the Western Front. However, there's small box sets that you can buy if you want to expand the war to the Pacific theater, if you want to look at Operation Barbarossa and the Nazis battling it out with the Soviet Union, or perhaps you want to look at Operation Torch in North Africa, and they have a Mediterranean expansion for that. This game also comes with campaign books, so you can flip through. In most cases, you're looking at an average of about 50 battles to help expand your game. So if you introduce this game to your class and you find students are really loving it, but they get through the core game pretty quickly, well, there's lots of expansions that you can buy, particularly if you want to focus on a different theater other than just Western Front European theater. So to conclude, I think Memoir 44 is a fantastic game, both in the fun of the gameplay itself and its mechanics, and in terms of its educational value. Even though the game doesn't focus on the core concepts from World War II, it's not going to hit on sort of those major themes, perhaps if you game like Axis and Allies. It does give a very rich, detailed background information for each battle that you're going to play, and will give students the historical context, and really will help satiate the appetite of those military history buffs that you might have in your class. Regardless of its educational value, this game has won many awards just for how fun it is and how well designed it is in terms of its mechanics. And so I've heard of teachers using this as low as grade 3, and of course would be suitable all the way up to adults who might be interested in World War II. So that's my review for Memoir 44. Thank you very much for watching, and stay tuned. I'm hoping to do a video review once a week. That's my goal. You might have to cut me some slack at report card time, but in general, I certainly have some more games that I can show you in the coming weeks. So thanks, have a great weekend.